For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Hello and welcome to a presentation on the Great Controversy, the battle for your choice. This is the fifth presentation in the series and is entitled The Frontal Lobe and Your Choice. I want to remind you about the book, The Great Controversy, on which these presentations are based, and encourage you to try and get it and read it. I also want to remind you that at the end of each presentation, there will be contact details about how you can get a free copy of the abridged version of The Great Controversy entitled The Great Hope. In our previous presentation, we briefly looked at a propensity, what a propensity is, modulators, what the modulators were, and then one of the greatest mysteries that we'd ever be exposed to, how am I saved? A little bit more on choices, how to keep your choices healthy, and then modifying your modulators. I also would like to give credit to Be Free and thank them for some of the concepts and thoughts used in this presentation. Be Free is a lifestyle center based in South Africa, and you can find out more about them at this website, www.befree.co.za. I want you to consider and just ponder on this point. Up to and including today, you did what you knew how to do. But when you know better, you should do better. You don't live the problem, you work the problem. And there is no place for shame when working a problem. As we have seen, your destiny does not happen by chance, but by choice. Your choices decide your habits. Your habits decide your lifestyle. Your lifestyle decides your character, and your character decides your destiny. And it all starts with your choices. We've seen this a couple of times. So we're going to be looking into how to keep your choices healthy. And we're going to go into a journey into the space behind your forehead, your mind, your brain, a specific area. We saw in white patches, those patches that are formed in the brain, that what a choice looks like under a microscope, a high-powered microscope. It would be that single strand. Those choices form the habits, all those little choices, and the habits, of course, end up forming your lifestyle, the lifestyle of habits. And in Proverbs 23, verse 7, as well as 4, verse 23, we get this thought. As a man thinketh in his heart. When the Bible talks about the heart, it's talking about the mind, because that's where we do our thinking. So is he. For out of the heart, the mind, are the issues of life. So what's in the mind is what makes you, your lifestyle, your character. And David says in the Psalms, create in me a clean heart, a clean mind, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. This was David's prayer, this was his plea. That's why his heart was right with God. That's why God called him a man after my own heart. We're going to now look at the heart, what the Bible calls the heart, the brain, the mind, and we're going to look at a specific area in the brain. These are some of the lobes in the brain. The parietal lobe, which has a lot to do with our motor function, the movement of our arms and legs. The occipital lobe, which is a lot to do with our sight, as well as balance and vision. The cerebellum, which isn't a lobe, it's a part of the brain on its own. And then the temporal lobe, also to do with movement, etc. But there's one area that we're going to be talking about where specifically the choices take place. It's called the frontal lobe. It's the frontal area of the brain, those two areas, a little bit smaller than that maybe, and it's called the frontal lobe. And this is where your character is laid down. This is where you as a person is to be found. It's where your individuality is to be found. What makes Casilla, Casilla, what makes Nolene, Nolene, what makes Paul, Paul. It's where our characters are laid down through the choices, through the habits, through the lifestyle. And that is where you are. So there's a picture of the frontal lobe again. In the frontal lobe, scientific studies have shown that the frontal lobe is the seat of your spirituality. This is what makes us different from animals, as we'll see a little bit later. It's where our spirituality is. God has specifically left an empty space that makes us search for spirituality, that makes us search for Him. And we're not going to talk about that right now, but that's where our spirituality is found. It's the seat of our morality and what makes us different once again from animals. And it's the seat of the will, where we make our choices, where the fundamental will of a person is found to go in a certain direction or not, the will. So it's a seat of spirituality, morality, and the will. We're going to focus on many of the common habits. And these common habits that we have only give short-term satisfaction, maybe for 10 minutes, having a smoke, whatever. It gives you satisfaction, but for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But it quietly robs you of something of priceless value, knowing who you or I really am. So we're going to look at how to maximize the efficiency of your frontal lobe. To do this, we need to know how to get your frontal lobe healthy, first of all, because all of us do not have healthy lobes. Second of all, what to avoid so that the frontal lobe, that center of your heart, the mind, can expand and grow and be kept healthy. So let's see a little bit more about the frontal lobe. It's the control center of your being. It's the seat of decision making. It's where you are, as a person, controlling your movement, your arm, your decision making, etc. It's what makes you unique, your individuality, what makes, as I said, Jane, Jane, and Peter, Peter, and Paul, Paul. It's where our individuality is seated. It's where trustworthiness and reliability are found. How much trustworthiness and reliability do you see around in this world today? If there was no other person, would you be willing to leave your car open in the area you live? There are still some areas like that in the world, but they're few and far between. Would you leave your laptop at the university and expect it to find it there tomorrow? Trustworthiness and reliability. The interpersonal relationships, those relationships that we develop with our wives, with our spouses, with friends, that's where it's seated, that choice in the frontal lobe. It's where our intellect and sound reasoning is found, where we make that decision, where we are intelligent beings. Remember, we said a free moral agent had to be intelligent so that he could make intelligent decisions. And it's where that reasoning capability is found. And of course, it's the seat of judgment. It's where we make moral decisions. It's also the area of self-control. How much self-control have you seen out there? How much self-control do you see in your own life? Okay, why do we always do things the hard way? A healthy frontal lobe, a healthy heart, a healthy mind means you will have respected and longed for character qualities without even trying. Why do we have to do things the hard way? This is what a nerve cell, what we call a neuron, looks like under a very high-powered microscope. And I'll just show you some of the features of a nerve cell. The nerve cell itself, the nucleus, that's the heart, where everything happens of the cell, where the DNA and RNA and other aspects of a cell are found. The dendrite, those are the little arms that are expanded from a nerve cell, where they interconnect with other nerve cells. The axon, the synapse, and of course, right at the synapses, that's where the one nerve cell, it doesn't quite touch, it almost touches, it's microns. The size of that synapse is very, very small. And across that, there's neurotransmitters. One cell could have up to 1,500 dendrites. Some facts about a neuron or a nerve cell. In your brain, there are hundreds of billions of nerve cells. There are thousands of different types of these different neurons, these different nerve cells. So there's hundreds of billions of them, and there's thousands of different types. And each one of these different types would take a lifetime for an individual to try and study it and try and understand it, just to understand one. The average axon fires about 100 other neurons. So each time an axon fires, it's affecting at least 100 other neurons every time it is used. And it's spreading, and this is how our thoughts and the pathways and our choices are propagated through the brain. One type, it's called the Purkinje cells, can make up to 200,000 other connections every time it fires. Okay, the frontal lobe, and some more interesting facts about the frontal lobe. It takes about 30 years to mature. We in the Western society always think that we mature after the age of 21. We get given the key when we're 21 years old. But there's some proof that you actually reach the age of maturity. You're a mature adult at the age of 30. And just an interesting thought that comes to mind. Christ was on this, Jesus was on this world for 33 years. How old was he when he started his ministry? He was 30 years old. He was at the age of maturity. Think about that. The frontal lobe, the size differs from different species in the animal kingdom. The frontal lobe, that frontal lobe area that we were talking about, in cats, it's about 3%, the size of the frontal lobe, relative to the other parts of the brain, of course. In dogs, it's about 7%. Chimpanzees, it's quite a bit bigger, about 17%. You can see where evolutionists are always trying to say this is where it's coming from, small to big. We, somewhere way back, were part of chimpanzees, etc. That's nonsense, but we'll be talking about the frontal lobe, and in humans, it's about 33 to 38%, and it's what affects our social behavior. Here's just a schematic presentation. In cats, it's about 3 to 3.5%. A dog, a little bit more clever. I tend to be more of a dog person myself. We've got 3 dogs at home, but I like cats too. 7%. What's a man's best friend? The dog. Okay, and in a chimpanzee, a little bit higher up, 17%. But this is what separates us from the animal kingdom. In man, it's 33%. That ability to reason, the ability to have intellect, the ability where our will, our spirituality is seated. Frontal lobe, 33%. So, what are the effects of a compromised frontal lobe? That means that frontal area is no longer functioning as it should. It means that you're going to have impairment of moral principles. Have you seen a decline in morality in this planet? Have you seen things happening that shouldn't? Morality, our morality is seated in our frontal lobes. You just have to look around you at sexual immorality, any kind of morality you like. Also morality when we're going to be talking about this a little bit more about God's law. Social impairment, loss of love for family. It's almost a daily occurrence in the news. You hear of a father that's taken a gun and he's shot his wife and even his children, and then turned the gun on himself and shot himself. Social impairment, lack of foresight, the ability to see what your choices today are going to affect your destiny in the future. Lack of foresight, the frontal lobe is not working. We can see that happening more and more today, and we'll go into the reasons in a moment. Incapability of abstract reasoning, unable to understand proverbs, you can't think laterally. We see more and more of this in our schools, diminished ability for mathematical understanding. The times we're living in, we see this, and loss of empathy. Walking past somebody who's been lying there in the street, he's maybe been stabbed, been robbed, been mugged, and you walk past, it doesn't affect you anymore. Lack of empathy. And then lack of restraint. Boasting, hostility, aggressiveness. What would make a man get out of his truck, take a baseball bat, out of rage, they call it road rage, go to another car behind him, rip the man out and try to bash his brains in? Is that person's frontal lobe working? For that moment, definitely not. that person's frontal lobe has almost totally been shut down. Let's look at some additional effects of a compromised frontal lobe. Memory impairment, especially the short-term memory, the recent events, distractibility, restlessness. You just have to look at our youth in the schools today, find them daydreaming, not concentrating, not focusing. We'll come to the reason why in a moment. Fantasies, emotional instability, living in a dream world, living in a fantasy world, living in a computer world with all of these new abstract worlds. And then apathy, no initiative, no goal, no fear. You've seen the cap saying no fear. That's our youth today. Some additional effects. And we can't understand one's true condition. We've got a very happy-go-come, lucky attitude. Okay, there's some diseases that are associated with the frontal lobe. They're not necessarily the cause, and they're not caused by a frontal lobe disease necessarily, but they are associated. Mania, what they call bipolar nowadays, obsessive compulsive disorders, increased appetite. If there's increased appetite, some of the control is taken away from the frontal lobe. Attention deficit hyperactivity syndrome, it's increased. They've included before there were only 2, now they're up to I think 13 or 14 different categories of attention deficit syndromes. And then of course depression, the ability to choose. What is the main cause for a depressed frontal lobe? And this is going to catch you. Our main cause is an improper lifestyle. The lifestyles we are living today is depressing our frontal lobes. And what is the lifestyle again? Your choices decide your habits. Your habits decide your lifestyle. It's coming from our choices and what we're exposing ourselves to. So, where does it come again? Your choices decide your habits. Habits, lifestyle. Your lifestyle decides your character. Your character decides who you are, and who you are decides your destiny. So you can see in this whole process, we're already up to the lifestyle, and this is lifestyle is affecting our frontal lobe. Okay, what is the battleground? The battleground for your choice takes place in your minds, in the brain, in that frontal lobe. We're homing in right where your choice takes place. Your mind's the frontal lobe. A healthy mind is a modulator for a healthy choice. And this is what we're looking into right now. The battle for your choice. So, make sure you have a healthy body. A healthy body is a prerequisite for a healthy brain. A healthy brain, particular frontal lobe, is a prerequisite for a healthy mind. A healthy mind is a prerequisite for a healthy choice, where we make our choices. It starts with a healthy body, goes to a healthy brain, healthy mind, healthy choices. And remember, a healthy choice is a prerequisite for a healthy destiny. It is also true that a healthy mind and a choice is a prerequisite for a healthy body, but this is a choice made in the body, in the flesh, me. It is also true that our enemy wants unhealthy people who are giving them their choices and service. Sorry, healthy and unhealthy, as long as he gets your choice. He doesn't care if you're healthy or unhealthy. That's the devil. So, let's go on to the next slide. This is our leader, Pastor Arnold. He always shows us this slide, and it's a fantastic verse that I show you in the Bible. 3 John 2 says, "Friends, I wish above all things that you may enjoy good health and all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well." This is our wish for you, and we use it at our Lifestyle Center because we want healthy bodies so that we can have healthy minds, healthy frontal lobes, and ultimately healthy spiritual choices, because that's where your destiny lies. There was a study that was done on on lifestyle habits. They found that it was possible to add 12 extra quality years to one's life by following 7 simple habits. These habits were, and they're so simple, I'm just going to mention them. Get sleep. It's actually 6 to 8 hours of sleep each night. The second habit, no eating between meals. Simple, it's just a choice you need to make. The third one was eat breakfast daily. I had this problem. Sometimes I would skip breakfast. We don't realize how important eating breakfast is. If you don't eat breakfast, I'm offering you a choice today to eat breakfast. Maintain a proper weight, what we call your ideal body mass index, and get regular exercise at least daily for at least 5 days of the week, and moderate or no use of alcohol. The 7th one was no smoking. Belloc and Breslow came up with these 7 simple health habits. It wasn't a huge study. I think it was about 7,000 people or something. But the results were quite conclusive. And what's more interesting is that they found, and this is quite astonishing, they found that those that had 0 to 3 of those 7 habits lived to about the age of 67. Those that had 4 to 5 habits lived to about the age of 73, so that's already an extra 6 years. But those that had all 6 or 7 habits, at least 6 habits, but all 7 habits, lived to about the age of 78 on average. And there's a 12-year difference. But more interesting than just the extra 12 years, those who had 7 habits had the same quality of life at the age of 80 as those who were 35 or 40 years old and only had 0 to 3 habits. I told this to a friend of mine, and he says, well, that's good. And I said, well, we all want to die. That's good. He said, but we're all going to die. I said, yes, but there's a big difference in terms of dying at the age of 80 with a clear mind, making positive choices, as opposed to dying at the age of 40 with a benumbed frontal lobe and not able to make positive choices. 8 laws of health. I'm going to give you an easy way to remember these 8 laws of health. Who wants to make a new start? When it comes to you having a healthy body so that you can make healthy choices, who wants this? There's 8 laws of health, and we can remember them with a simple mnemonic: nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust. Trust in God. Nutrition. When people start talking about health, they always tend to focus on just this aspect of food. And by the way, I just need to say, this mnemonic was developed in America, and we use it at our lifestyle. There's many mnemonics around this, but this is just an easy way to remember it. Nutrition. This is where people get stuck and they say health is just what you eat. And that is true. But and it plays a big factor, particularly in the times we're living. When we look at nutrition, there's 3 or 4 just simple things that I can tell you that you can do and maybe avoid that will keep your body and mind healthier. The first thing is avoid processed or complex foods. Those fast foods, I won't mention names, but the processed foods, things out of tins, things out of packets, that's the first thing. Avoid those. Avoid things that are harmful, and we'll be talking in our next presentation a little bit about the harmful things to avoid. And then the do's. Eat lots of natural food, unprocessed as far as possible, fruits, vegetables, and try not to eat your fruits and vegetables together. The digestive times do differ a little bit, and we can spend lots of time talking about nutrition and the do's and don'ts of nutrition. But eat natural foods, and then grains, nuts. This was the original diet, and if we go back to it, we're going to have the original clarity of thought, the original clearness to make choices. Nutrition, we could talk lots about it, and I wish I had the ability to and time just to carry on to do that. Exercise. Many people think that exercise, exercise is where the fountain of life and longevity is found. One of the studies showed that somebody who smokes, and we know smoking is not good for you. There's not one good thing that can be said about smoking. Take any organ from the skin right through to the heart, nothing good to be said about smoking. But somebody who smokes and exercises, each day gets up and runs 5 to 10 kilometers, he's a marathon runner, is healthier than someone who does not smoke but doesn't get exercise. It's a small statistical difference, but it's there. Exercise for longevity. Sunshine. Water, we missed the water. Water, your body consists of anything from 69 to close to 70%, over 70% of water. If you had to take your bone and squeeze it under compression, you'd get water coming out. Your brain consists of almost 85% of water. At a cellular level, to keep our body healthy, we need a medium of water, the fluid through which all of the chemical processes happen, a constant flow of energy in the form of glucose, and oxygen, a constant flow of oxygen to keep those chemical processes. And so your body needs at least 6 to 8 glasses of water a day. And God's made our body so wonderful, it processes all of that. Sunshine. Now, people are scared of the sun nowadays, talking about skin cancers and all kinds of problems, but your body needs at least 20 minutes of sun of sun exposure. I'll talk about the 20-20 rule. About 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters for 20 minutes in the day at least. Yeah, in Africa, in South Africa, it's not a problem, but in certain countries, in Europe, etc., they don't get enough exposure. Temperance. We'll be talking a little bit more about temperance in our next lecture. But temperance is simply defined as using in moderation that which is good and avoiding everything that is harmful. What is harmful? I mentioned one of them, smoking. Nothing good to be said about smoking. Nothing good to be said about using drugs, hard drugs. Very little good to be said about using alcohol. And I'm not going to discuss alcohol right now, but that's temperance, avoiding that which is harmful and using in moderation that which is good. Fresh air, we just don't get enough fresh air. We're living in cities with smog all around us. Take time just to take deep breaths and expand your lungs. After taking 3 deep breaths, our brains start giving off endorphins, those happy hormones that help us, and oxygen goes to our brains and we start thinking clearer. Rest, our bodies need at least 6 to 8 hours of rest a day. Too much is not good for you, too little is not good for you either. And then the last and the most important for me is trust in God. God created your body, God knows what it needs, God knows what it does not need, and He will help you in your choice to make a new start. Friends, I now, however, need to remind you that we are in the cosmic battle called the Great Controversy, and this battle is the battle for your choice. Right now, I want to invite you to make some choices with me, which are based on this presentation. The first choice, choose to keep your frontal lobe healthy, your mind, your heart. Choose to keep your frontal lobe healthy. That's where you make your choices. Actively choose to make a new start. Ask God to help you make a new start. And then the third one, realize at what level health starts and then choose to be healthy. Health is your choice. Thank you for listening, and until next time, God bless and goodbye.